Morning, everyone. Turn it to the chair. Mr. Chair, looks like we may still have a member or two joining here in a minute, but I think in interest of time, you can start the meeting at your convenience.
Thank you. This morning, I'd like to welcome everybody to the March meeting of the BRTB. A reminder, this meeting is being recorded, and if anyone should have any online difficulties, please send a message into the chat box. A reminder to members to please turn your cameras on for the roll call for attendance as well as for voting. I'll now ask Rebecca to start the roll call to determine member participation.
Good morning. Annapolis,
Here.
Anne Arundel County,
Here.
Baltimore City, Baltimore County,
Here.
Carroll County,
Here.
Harford County,
Here.
Howard County, Queen Anne's County,
Here.
MDOT.
Present.
Thank you. RTA of Central Maryland.
Here.
MDOT MTA,
Here.
Maryland Department of Environment, Maryland Department of Planning.
Here. Good morning.
Good morning. FHWA.
Here.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Now we'll move along to our first item, which is approval of the minutes from our January BRTB meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? Can I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
Very good. Is there any edits to the minutes from the members? Hearing none, we'll now move to vote for the approval of the minutes. When your name is read, please indicate yay or nay.
Annapolis.
Yay.
Thank you. Anne Arundel County,
Yay.
Baltimore City, Baltimore County,
Yay.
Carroll County,
Yay.
Harford County,
Yay.
Howard County,
Yay.
Queen Anne's. Oh, that was a yes for Howard?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Queen Anne's County,
Yay.
MDOT,
Yay.
and RTA of Central Maryland.
Yay.
Thank you.
Very good. The minutes have been approved. Next is our public participation opportunity, where we offer a chance for the public to speak to the board. If anyone has any comments on any of the action items, please wait for the item to be discussed. If there is anyone who wishes to address the board at this time, please indicate so in the chat box.
Mr. Chair, currently there is no one requesting to speak in the chat box.
Very good. Now we'll move along for the report on our public involvement activities from Monica.
Good morning. Oh. So I'm here to present the public involvement report for March. Next slide. And I'm really excited to let you know that we've been working on some new language, some plain language surrounding our outreach. So we are, next slide, excited to launch our new BMC engagement hub with a new branding name. So it's now called yourregionyourvoice.org. And this used to be our engagement hub at, publicinput.com, and it had just sort of a clunky name. So we wanted something really friendly that people could remember, and it was sort of inspiring. So this is what we went with. So this is now in order to reach our engagement hub to find out what we're doing and how people can get involved. Folks can just head over to yourregionyourvoice.org and you can scan that QR code. So we're excited about that. So in terms of engagement in February, we had over 2,300 visitors to the website. We had 45 people who participated in the surveys and projects that we had open. That yielded 52 comments, 66 subscribers. In order to connect with people, we sent over 9,000 emails and 100 text messages. I'm excited to report we had a 77% open email rate. So folks are interested in hearing what we have to say. So that's exciting. Next. So one of the comment periods that we wrapped up earlier this month, March 9th, was our transportation planning budget. Now, this is the document you may formally refer to as the Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP, but we've rebranded this to make it more friendly. Next slide. And I'm really happy to report that something seems to be working. We've been able to increase engagement. So this year we had nearly 900 people visit the website. We had 27 people participate, which is a significant increase since last year, and it's a 440% increase since we rebranded the UPWP to the transportation planning budget. So plain language definitely resonates with folks, and it's important to remember. So we're really excited about that. So for this budget, we had 27 folks participate, 26 comments, including one from an organization, and we had 30 new folks subscribe. And we sent over 1,800 emails in order to reach out to folks and let them know what's going on. Next slide. So just a few highlights. We're going to have more detailed presentation next month on this, but just a few highlights on what we heard. In terms of budget priorities, what folks had to say is they're looking for more sidewalks, bike lanes, and public transit. This is similar to what we've heard in other comment periods. There was feedback to spend less on consultants and to make the budget more make the budgets more clear. So another call to try to be more clear with our plain language and explain what we do. And the third priority that folks had to say was to support transit projects like the Red Line instead of expanding highways. And again, we've heard similar comments before in other comment periods. In terms of ideas for future activities for the next budget, folks suggested using the same time standard to measure transit and driving accessibility. Folks wanted us to focus more on building projects instead of just planning, and to be transparent about how the money is spent and rely less on consultants. So those are the top things that we heard. So this is a really exciting project that we're doing right now. We're right in the middle of it. We have about 2 weeks left to go, or till next Friday. So we're really excited about this. This is called the Getting There, Your Transportation Story. It's a survey, a short survey about how folks get around and what their needs are and what the barriers are, and the challenges that folks have in terms of getting around the region. And anybody who takes the survey, enters their information, will get a chance to win a $100 gift card. And those that are interested can also register with us to join a focus group. We're going to be doing some focus groups to get more detailed comments from folks on needs and challenges. But this information that we're collecting for this survey is going to provide data for y'all in terms of planning for the next long range transportation plan, which we're kicking off later this year. So this is really important early, opportunity for folks to weigh in. And so would appreciate anybody's help spreading the word. And the link for that is yourregionyourvoice.org/getting there. And again, this is open. The survey is open until next Friday, April 4th. We also have an exciting project down in Cherry Hill. We have been planning the Patapsco Regional Greenway for quite some time now, and we've been doing it in different segments. So now we're down in the Cherry Hill community, and we are looking to design a 1.7-mile trail down there. So this is sort of the launch process to let folks know, hey, this is what we're looking to do. What do you think about the location? Any challenges we should know about? What can we do to make the trail beneficial? It's, really to just give a heads up and try to get the early information. And later we'll go out with some, draft information where the trail will go and get comment in 2 more phases of this project. We had a meeting last night. So that's really exciting. I haven't heard how many folks showed up, but hopefully it went very well. Anybody who's interested can check out this QR code or get more information and take our survey by April 14th at yourregionyourvoice.org/CherryHillPRG. And we are looking for Transportation Corps members. These are volunteers who serve on a virtual panel, sort of a focus group behind the scenes. And folks meet several times a year and do online surveys and discussions. They help shape our projects and outreach efforts. For example, they've tested several of the surveys that we've put out before we put them out to improve them. So that's been very helpful. Right now, we're looking for folks from Annapolis, Anne Arundel, Carroll, Harford, Howard, and Queen Anne's County. So folks who are interested in applying today can scan that QR code or go to yourregionyourvoice.org/core app. And we're excited to promote another Bike to Work Week this May. So save the date for May 12th to 18th. We're going to have pit stops and Bike to Work Day on May 16th. There'll also be additional locations and additional events through the week. Folks who register can get a free t-shirt and be eligible for giveaways. We usually have around 40 locations. We're still setting all of that up, but registration opens next week. So you can look for that to sign up at biketoworkmd.com. And this is something I'm really excited to share. Last year, one of our Transportation Corps members had suggested I get in touch with Capsite. He is a member of this organization. It's a capital area organization of transportation engineers. And I met with their leadership team, myself and my colleague at BMC, Eileen Singleton, and we had a really great discussion, and they were excited to partner with us. So what we did was we organized a showcase of BMC work. And so I think maybe 6 or 7 BMC staff shared the work that we're doing. We shared about our insight model, that travel demand model that we have. We shared about how we do public outreach. We shared about our scenario planning, safety planning, emergency response. And we had about 40 people in the room. It was packed. People were really interested. And afterwards, we had Capsite hosted a happy hour where we were able to network, and people were really excited. I heard from the Capsite leadership that folks were asking about the presentation afterwards, and it was the most asked for presentation that they've had. So it was a really, really great event, and folks were really excited to learn more about all of the work that BMC does, and we're very impressed. So we're really happy to have partnered with Capsite, and we're hoping to do some more events with them in the future. In terms of outreach, we have been continuing to connect with folks at the commission meetings and professional meetings. So these are some of the meetings we attended. I was at the Southwest Partnership Vibrant and Walkable Streets Communities to let them know about our Getting There survey in Cherry Hill. I've been at the Howard County Multimodal Transportation Board, the Anne Arundel Transportation Commission, and we want to make sure we're getting out to all kinds of folks and people who have especially folks who have faced transportation barriers or challenges. So we made sure to get to the Anne Arundel Commission on Disabilities issues earlier. And we've been to other meetings, similar meetings in other jurisdictions this month as well. So in terms of getting out and about in the community, obviously we had a meeting last night at the Cherry Hill Library in Cherry Hill. We have attended the Anne Arundel County Safe Routes to Transit. They've been having a series of public meetings, so we participated in that North County public meeting to connect with folks. We were at the Transit Choices meeting, and we our safety planner was at the Maryland Strategic Highway Safety Program public meeting. We know spring is coming up. There's a lot of outreach opportunities and events that go on. So if you know of anything going on in your community, please let us know. We're looking for places where we can get out and about and let folks know about the great work of BMC and BRTB. Again, these are the ways you can get involved. Visit yourregionyourvoice.org. When you get there, you can join our mailing list. You can find out what surveys are open to share comments. And you can also visit the BMC website at baltimoremetro.org to get a calendar of events for meetings like this where public members can join us. And that is all I have for this morning. If there's any questions, please let me know.
Great. Thank you, Monica. We're going to hear a report from our February meeting of the technical committee from Dan.
All right. Thank you. Hi, Dan Janicek, Maryland Department of Transportation. I don't think I can top that presentation, Monica. There's a lot going on this spring. Looks like great work on getting people involved. So just real quickly, I'm just going to go over the technical, what happened to the technical committee on March 4th. The tech committee considered 3 action items for 6 projects. Basically, the Bay Bridge project significantly. We're going to look today at the consideration for the request for alternatives retained for detailed study for the Bay Crossing Study Project. They also looked at several TIP amendments, including Anne Arundel County Ferry Project, rural transit systems, urban transit systems, and also the Annapolis Ferry Project, which you'll be voting on today. One more project to be amended into the TIP today is for the Maryland Transportation Authority to program an infra grant for the Curtis Creek Drawbridge and deck rehabilitation and resiliency project. So those were some of the major action items that the tech committee went over. For an informational item, presentation was given on a UPWP consultant task. Foursquare ITP presented a summary of the Microtransit Solutions Project. The purpose of the project was to develop best practices for implementing, operating, and promoting and funding microtransit in the Baltimore region. The key deliverables for their project included a report that summarizes existing microtransit solutions in the Baltimore region. There's enhancement opportunities report that identifies areas in the region where microtransit is likely to be successful, along with use cases for each. This included a prioritization framework for potential microtransit enhancement, along with other enhancement opportunities in policy, training, data collection, reporting, funding, and procurement. There's a peer case study report as well with the Microtransit Solutions Project that gathers insights and lessons learned from 12 peer agencies operating microtransit from 5 regions with similar characteristics to the Baltimore region. And there's also a guidebook which combines the analysis and case study research into a guidebook focused on key questions facing local jurisdictions and transit operators. Questions like, is microtransit the right service? How does an agency select and design and service an area? How does a microtransit integrate with other modes? And how can residents learn how to use the service? And how should an agency restructure and clear procurement? And that's it. 4 reports for this project are available on the BMC website. And that concludes our technical committee report.
Thank you. Due to some scheduling conflicts, we're now going to proceed with agenda item number 8, the legislative briefing. Mr. Matthew Mickler from MDOT will provide an overview of transportation-related legislation moving through the Maryland General Assembly.
Thank you very much. Just to pull up this board. All right. Oh, there we go. Apologies. There we go. All right, thanks again. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Matt Michler. I'm the Director of Government Affairs at MDOT, the Secretary's Office. Filling in for Michael Kelly today to complete this post-crossover legislative update for the board. With all the bills identified as of interest to the board, the bills were cross-filed in each house, which helps to kind of break things down into 3 fundamental categories. First, there'd be the bills where the cross-files passed both houses of origin by crossover. Those are bills that are in a decently good position. They got 2 chances of passing. If one house fails to act, the other house, can pick it up. They're timely, as you'd call them. The next would be bills where only one bill crossed over. Those are the bills where you kind of know that the focus of advocacy moving forward by any interested party is going to be in that house that didn't move the bill, to make sure that live bill keeps moving and will get over timely before sine die and back to the house of origin. And then there's the bills that didn't pass out of either house of origin. So I've taken the list I was provided and kind of broken things down by that. Just as we go through, in the interest of time, I'm going to focus on the bills that I understand are of primary interest to the board, with some exceptions. However, when we get to the questions, please feel free to ask about any of the other bills that are covered. I'm happy to provide an additional update. So moving first into the bills passed in both the Senate and the House. Really, MDOT only took a position on one of these, which was Senate Bill 40, House Bill 191, where we provided an LOI focused on the process of implementing this electronic notice to the owner. MVA really would serve as an intermediary here, flagging the notice to the customer for the tow truck company if the tow truck company happened to notify MVA and MVA happened to have the individual's email address on hand. Going into the board's primary interest items here, the one that fits into this category, Senate Bill 266 and House Bill, apologies, I got this, House Bill 286, that's an MDP, Department of Planning departmental bill. So I'd really recommend that the board seek out an update from that unit for the most comprehensive overview. Just the one thing I noticed as I was going through all of these is there looks to be a slight variation in the 2 versions of the bill. I just noted that the House bill, the amendments further define the ecology planning principles that are outlined in the bill. So that's something that probably will get worked out as the bills continue to progress. Then moving into this bills passed by one committee category, just an interesting data point to me. As you can see, all the bills that moved were the House versions of the bills. The cross files in the Senate stayed in the Senate. And then this is, not a broad generalization, but just so happens to be the case with the bills that the board is interested in. Doesn't mean that the Senate won't end up passing these bills. The Senate could have been waiting to receive the House's amendment and consider those actions as amendments and then ultimately move both bills as a package. But again, just something to kind of note. And I think, generally speaking, the advocacy that you might see if you're following one of these bills is going to be directed at the Senate, keeping that House version, which crossed over timely, moving. I'll focus on 3 of the bills here. The first being HB 80, Senate Bill 190. This was actually an MDOT departmental bill. The House Bill 80 went over to the Senate with a significant number of amendments developed by the committee and MDOT. Just noting that those amendments maintain the key land use and planning provisions of the bill, as well as language created that creates clarity concerning the status of TOD projects under state procurement law. The land use provisions were modified to tie granted authority to rail transit stations where there's an appropriate level of activity to support successful TOD projects. And by that, I mean, we focused on those stations that minimally receive one train per hour, Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. So those commuting hours. Definitely understand that there were concerns with the bill as introduced and that the language may have been kind of broad in its original drafting. And so we've attempted to narrow the overall impact to those kind of core elements that make TOD successful and provide a space where provisions like adequate public facility ordinances and affordable housing requirements could remain within the purview of the local governments. The next two bills I don't have that I'll highlight. It's just House Bill 84 and House Bill 517. There's not much here to discuss from my end. House Bill 84, that Transportation Climate Alignment Act of 2025, was MDOT had worked with the sponsor and other advocacy groups on a set of amendments. And so with that, original position had been favorable with amendment. Those amendments are on the bill. So you can say that at this point, MDOT would be supportive with the sponsor's amendments, but we're monitoring for the impact of any further amendments. And then for House Bill 517, what is now a MARC Rail Authority Work Group bill, we're currently reviewing the updated language that created this work group for how this might impact MTA's overall operations and funding. Skipping on to the bills that did not pass the House or Senate, there's only one of this list that falls into the list I received that falls into this category, and that's the MDOT Departmental Transportation Investment Priorities Act of 2025, or as I've been calling it, the CTP prioritization process bill. So as noted, the bill didn't move out of committee. Just at this point, we are continuing to study what implementation might look like in the future, as well as potential near-term changes that can be made to the priority letter submission process. And then because it is of great interest to everybody, and particularly the department, just want to provide a brief budget update. So keynote, based on the recent budget decisions, there are sufficient funds to cover the budgeted items in the budget as introduced. So we'll continue to evaluate those decisions and the impact of any additional revenue actions proposed in the BRFA beyond the $420 million that were proposed in the first reader version. Just, to take a step back, the 2025 transportation budget as introduced by the Moore-Miller administration leverages $420 million in new revenue to increase overall investment by nearly $700 million per year in total. And these additional resources will allow Maryland to make critical targeted investments, support debt service coverage, and leverage all available federal funds. I wanted to take a brief moment to thank the Move Maryland Coalition. They represent a broad cross-sector coalition responding to our state's transportation funding issues. Coalition was formed to ensure that Maryland passes a transportation budget in 2025 that invests at least at the level proposed by the Moore-Miller administration. So with the recent decision meeting notes, we've hit that point. And I would just like to, again, thank the coalition members who have met weekly on this important issue, raising awareness and garnering support with their constituencies to advocate for these additional funds. Their actions truly have helped to ensure that our state passes a transportation budget in 2025 that rises to the challenge and builds a solid foundation for the future. So with that, I know I went very quickly in this overview, but if there's any questions, please feel free to either to reach out to me. My email address is on the screen right now, or I'm happy to take some questions now on some of the other bills.
Hearing none. Thank you, Matt.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
Now we'll proceed to consideration of the resolutions. Mr. Lang, please present the first action item.
Certainly. Today, the BRTB is being asked to consider Resolution 25-22. This request is to consider the approval of the alternatives retained for detailed study, or the ARDS, for the Bay Crossing Study Project. Ms. Heather Lowe from MDTA is going to give the presentation. Heather, could you pull up your screen, please?
Good morning. Yes, I can. Let's see. Okay, can you see the presentation?
Fortunately, I think we're seeing your Zoom screen.
Still? Uh-oh. Okay, let me fix that. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. How's that?
Just need to go into presentation mode and then we're good.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much for having us today. So, as Todd mentioned, I'm Heather Lowe with the Maryland Transportation Authority, here to present the alternatives retained for detailed study for the Chesapeake Bay Crossing Study.
Any way you could move it into beginning of the slide program, please?
Just lost you.
From beginning. Is that better?
Oops, not sharing again. Sorry about that.
No, I apologize. I don't know what's going on here.
Okay. I have the presentation ready if need be.
Okay, that's great. Let's try one more time. Did that work?
You just need to go to presentation mode. You're on screen.
Is it in, are you seeing the presentation mode?
We're seeing the slide itself, not the actual PowerPoint part, not the presentation.
I'm seeing the presentation mode. So I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on.
Okay. Would it be
Technical
okay if I
difficulty.
share my screen and you just tell me when to flip the slide?
Absolutely.
Okay, if you could stop
Thank
sharing,
you,
I will go
Todd.
ahead. Just need you to stop sharing.
Okay. It's a good fail safe. Thank you.
Okay, just 1 second. Oops. Hold on. Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. Okay.
Here we go.
Let's go ahead and get started. So next slide. So today I'm going to give a real brief review of the study timeline and then go over the alternatives retained for detailed study and next steps. And I do want to mention I have Eric Almquist with me as well, who's going to be presenting part of the presentation this morning. Okay, next slide. So last year in February, we presented to the board on the resolution on the purpose and needs statement for the study. And then in June, we received all of the cooperating agencies' concurrence on that purpose and needs statement. And then we worked as a team. We pulled together the notice of intent to prepare an environmental impact statement. And that was published in mid-November of 2024. We held 3 public open houses as part of the scoping period for that notice of intent, or NOI. We had one virtual open house and 2 in-person open houses, one on each side of each shore of the Chesapeake Bay. And then in February of this year, we presented the proposed alternatives retained for detailed study to the cooperating and participating agencies. And now we're here presenting to the board to ask for approval of those ARDs from the board. We expect to, go back, got a little more. We expect to receive concurrence from the cooperating agencies this month. And then the next major thing you'll see is in the fall, we will have prepared a draft environmental impact statement, and we'll publish that notice of availability for the draft EIS. And we will hold public hearings on the draft EIS. And so that we'll be asking for public comment on the EIS. And included in that draft EIS will be the MDTA recommended preferred alternative. Then in the spring, summer of 2026, we'll be coming back to the agencies and asking for concurrence from the cooperating agencies on the preferred alternative and conceptual mitigation package. And the study will conclude in fall 2026 with the public notice of availability of that final environmental impact statement and record of decision. Okay, next slide, Todd. Thank you. And this is where Eric is going to take over, and then I'll come back for a few slides at the end.
Okay, hopefully folks can hear me okay. I'm on Heather's audio and my video, so see how this goes. So so for a major study like this, there's many different alternative components that we needed to look at. And so I'm going to go over each of those shown here on this wheel that we put into graphic form on the slide. A number of analysis took place during the course of the study over the last year in order to get us to these alternatives retained for detailed study, or ARDS, that Heather was just talking about. Those include updated traffic counts, land use data, and of course, preliminary cost and impact assessments, environmental impact assessments. So next slide. So on this graphic, we show all of the different elements that we looked at for building our alternatives, for developing our alternatives. And each one of the components are demonstrated or indicated by the puzzle pieces across the top of this graphic. And then below each one of the puzzle pieces shows the different options that we looked at for that particular component. So I'm going to talk about each of those in the subsequent slides, but just to give an overview. So for example, one of the components we looked at when we were thinking about what would be included with each of the build alternatives were whether or not the existing bridges would remain, or whether they would be, one or both would be taken down and removed as part of the new build alternative or the new crossing. We also looked at what the structure type would be, whether it would be a full bridge or full tunnel, or a bridge tunnel combination, or double-decker bridge, etc. In that blue one there, just to indicate and talk about some of the examples, we looked at the possible number of lanes, and that lane configuration we've got there in the lane nomenclature graphic on the bottom there shows what we mean by these numbers. So the 686, you'll hear that term kind of tossed around. That means 6 lanes on the western shore on US 5301, 8 lanes for the bay crossing itself on whatever structure we're advancing, in this case the bridge, and then 6 lanes on the eastern shore. So that's what a 686 means. And so we looked at many different number of lane combinations, whether it be a 666, 686, 888, 810, or 1010. And so on this graphic, you see any of the options that are in color are the ones that we are advancing in our build alternatives. The ones that are grayed out are the ones that we are not advancing as our ARDS. So next slide. So the first question we had to ask as a key component of our ARDS was whether or not the existing bridges would be removed or would be retained. On this graphic, you can see the expenditures for maintenance and for upkeep of the existing bridges. So in the past, since the second span was completed, installed in 1970, open to the public in 1970, we've had the Maryland Transportation Authority has had $1.1 billion in past costs up until today in order to maintain and upkeep the both existing spans of the Bay Bridge. So that's a fairly hefty cost, but it's going to get much greater into the future. So that from the right of that green line there, the 2023 line, you can see that we have anticipated future costs of $3.8 billion just to maintain the existing spans, and that's through 2065 approximately. And you can see why. We've got some of the bubbles and the callouts here of some of the major maintenance activities and that would occur on both bridge spans. So, everything from deck replacement to cable replacement, full repainting, and then deck replacement of the other span. And so each time we do this, of course, it adds to the overall cost. And in the meantime, we're not getting any additional infrastructure. It really is just upkeep. And so we end up with a $3.8 billion no-build alternative in essence. So this was a major factor for us to consider. And the reason why, as we advance the ARDs, we are proposing to not retain the existing bridges. So both of the bridges would be replaced in the scenarios moving forward. Okay, next slide. Okay, another thing we looked at carefully is the structure type. So we evaluated a number of different structure types. We are retaining the full bridge structure type, which means that it would be full bridge and 2 spans, a new bridge from shore to shore. We also looked at a bridge tunnel, kind of like what you have in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia, where you would have bridge and then tunnel and then bridge as you cross the Chesapeake. But in this case, we felt that it was much more viable to go with a full bridge. And the reason is for mobility, we have the opportunity for inclusion of a shared use path on a full new bridge, on 2 new bridge spans. Also, this is a key, is transportation of hazardous materials across the bay cannot be accomplished through a tunnel. There's just too many risks and dangers involved with transporting hazmats through tunnels. As you can see with in the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel and with the Fort McHenry Tunnel, those materials are restricted. So we would carry that forward if we had a tunnel crossing the Chesapeake as well. So for that reason, that's really a key reason why we want to make sure that we do have bridges across the bay. Also, environmental responsibility, there will be a smaller footprint with bridge compared to a tunnel. This is sort of counterintuitive, but definitely at the shore points where you tie in, the tunnel comes to land to the surface, there's a substantial footprint implication, and then also much lower cost. We'll talk about that a little bit too when we get to the next slide. And other advantages include of having just 2 spans, as opposed to just 1 span, is the redundancy. If something happens with 1 span, whether there's an incident or some other catastrophic event with 1 span, you do have the redundancy of having the 2nd span there. And then also flexibility with funding in terms of how you construct a 2-span bridge crossing. You can build one and then wait for funding or work to get funding for the additional 2nd span and sequence it much more logically that way. Next slide. So a tunnel has not been retained, or any alternatives that include a tunnel, these have not been retained. We did hear a lot of comments that maybe a tunnel would be worthwhile, given that it would not restrict the navigation channel. It wouldn't create a clearance issue for navigation coming up the bay. But but overall, there would be substantial environmental impacts to the shorelines. There would also be requirements for very large ventilation islands and for large additional bores for ventilation. And this is because you have to vent tunnels, and this is a 4-mile crossing. It would honestly be one of the largest tunnels in the United States, and that creates enormous engineering challenges. Also, the mobility challenges that we talked about before with hazmats and with limited ability or no ability for a shared use path. That small table on the right side, it shows the difference in cost. A tunnel would be 2 to 3.5 times more expensive than a bridge with the same amount of travel capacity, and really puts it into the realm of not feasible from a cost perspective. Okay, next slide. Another thing we looked at is the alignments relative to existing 5301. So we actually made an early decision to not stray far from 5301 with our bridge alignment or our crossing alignment over the bay and on 5301 because of the substantial amount of development and environmental impacts that are associated with going off alignment with basically a new roadway that would be separated some distance from 5301. So it's important to note that any of the improvements that we're talking about here with the ARDs would be very close to the existing US 5301 alignment, In essence, we'd be talking about widening US 5301 by one lane or by no additional lanes, depending on the alternative, and I'll get to that in a moment. But the on land, and then the bay would be the crossing of the bay would also be very close to the existing Bay Bridge. Okay, next slide. So here's where I talk about the number of lanes, as I mentioned in the last slide. So again, that graphic to show what we're talking about here. The first number is the Western Shore number of lanes. The middle number is the Bay Crossing number of lanes, and the right number is the Eastern Shore number of lanes. So so we looked at the possible queue lengths and the number of hours that could potentially have traffic in queue with each of a number of different scenarios. You can see with the first row there, the existing queues in the non-summer weekday periods, which for all intents and purposes these days are Tuesdays and Wednesdays. You kind of get into weekend travel patterns any other days of the week, so the weekends are very long. But for this analysis, for Tuesdays and Wednesdays, we don't have queues today, typically in existing conditions, but we do certainly in summer weekend days. And you can see those the number of hours where you have queues in the right tables. So 4.8 is the maximum queue length, and then we have a duration of 8 hours of queue at sometimes. So that's in the existing conditions. In the no build conditions, it gets much, much worse. So non-summer weekdays, we start to have substantial queues, and then on summer weekend days, very long queues. And then we looked at each of the possible build scenarios. The 666, we would see that this really doesn't make that much difference. More or less, this is what we have today, because even though the bridge and US 5301 are in a 656 configuration, in other words, the bridge is only 5 lanes of total capacity, MDTA does operate contraflow during peak periods and does more or less provide for a 666 condition. So really, we don't get much benefit at all out of a 666. Just building a new 6-lane bridge would not get us anything. I'll also go down to the bottom row there, the 10, 10, 10. This would provide more than what we need. You can see that it's actually basically the same queue information or the queue results as an 8, 10, 8. And so what that indicates is you would be building 10 lanes on either shore for no reason. You can really get the same amount of travel flow and flow with the 8, 10, 8. So same amount of or same elimination of queues with the 8, 10, 8. So the 10, 10, 10 did not make any sense to advance either. So what we're left with is the 686, the 888, and the 810-8 that would be advanced in the ARDS, and you can see the varying results of the queue lengths. But overall, those are the best of the solutions that we have moving forward. Okay, next slide. So the structure location, as I mentioned before, would be very close to either the existing bridge, and what we would be retaining and moving forward is a north bridge location as shown in purple there, or a south bridge location as shown in yellow. And we're going to talk a little bit about where specifically that location is, I think on the next slide, how we can sequence it to be in more or less in between the existing bridges. One of the spans would be in between the existing bridge locations. So next slide. So if you could start this video, Todd, thanks. So what this is an example of how the sequencing could occur for a south and in between bridge location. I'll just walk through this. So again, very close to the existing Bay Bridge span. So those are the existing spans shown there from an aerial photograph. So the first thing that would happen would be construction of the first new span to the south of both new spans. Then we would be of both spans, excuse me. Then we would remove the first existing span, so the south span. Then we would construct the second new span, again very close to the old span, and then we would remove the existing westbound span. So there's also a scenario that would be the same as this, but just on the north side. Okay, next slide. Looked at a number of different transit options, including bus service, which we would be advancing for more analysis. So we're looking at things like enhancements to local bus service and to commuter bus service and intercity bus service. The types of improvements could be 24-hour dedicated transit lane on the bridge, congested period only dedicated transit lane, bus on shoulder operation, and perhaps queue jump lanes as well. So all of these things are still under considerations with the ARDS. Next slide. We also did not retain a number of the higher capacity options. Certainly when it comes to rail and bus rapid transit, those would be higher capacity, but they also do not provide too much relief in volume. So there's a couple bullets here that talk about the fact that rail would, in that middle column there, rail would only reduce Bay Bridge traffic by roughly 0.3 to 0.6%. So very limited amount of benefit to travel volumes. Also, there would be extensive environmental impacts associated with a new rail line. Just to get the new rail line to the Bay crossing itself, rail does not currently exist to the Chesapeake Bay, to the shores of the Chesapeake Bay. So that would mean a lot of new infrastructure. Same thing with bus rapid transit. Again, really just a very small reduction in volume, and would be a substantial amount of infrastructure in order to implement a BRT ultimately. Ferries have been a topic of conversation for a long time on this project. We would not preclude advancement of ferry across the Bay, and there actually are studies underway from other jurisdictions like the city of Annapolis and others who are looking at possible ferries. But really, this would not be a substitute for a bay crossing or for travel across the Bay for commuter or for the typical Bay Bridge traffic. Okay, so we also are looking at a shared use path. Again, I've received a lot of comments regarding a shared use path, and MDTA is taking a hard look at the safe inclusion of a shared use path as part of the ARDS. We are considering it as a potential two-way ped bike facility separated from travel lanes with a physical barrier, and it would span the full length of the bridge, or maybe it would just go partway up for an observation location or something like that. But we are looking at that carefully as well. Okay, next slide. I think we are to Heather again.
I think this is where I take over again. So the next couple of slides are to let everyone know that the alternatives retained for detailed study that we are proposing are largely the same as what was included in the notice of intent. So if you go back and review that, there are two changes that we have made to the ARDS moving forward. So the first is the structure location. As Eric mentioned, we are only carrying forward or proposing to carry forward the north and in between and the south and in between locations for the new structures. And the all north and all south locations are not recommended because they would result in additional impacts to those very sensitive resources compared to using the space between the existing bridges. Next slide. And the second difference in the ARDS is that we are not recommending to carry forward interchange consolidation as a TSM TDM improvement because there are a lot of local residents and businesses that rely on all of the existing movements. So we're recognizing that, and we want to be sure that everybody continues to have those all of those movements available. And so we are not proposing to move forward the interchange consolidation TSM TDM improvement. Next slide. So the next few slides give an overview of the ARDS. This one shows everything all at once here. So we are carrying forward alternative A, which is the no build alternative, keeping things as they are. That's the 656 alternative. There would be no new transportation infrastructure with that alternative. The build alternatives, all of the build alternatives will include removing the existing bridges, and replacing them with a full bridge with 2 new bridge spans. We would stay close to the existing approach alignment on US 5301, and they would also include bus service improvements. So moving down on this slide a little bit, the rectangles here show the alternatives B through G. Alternative B is the 686 alternative, and the new spans would be constructed north and in between. Alternative C is the 686 alternative with the new spans constructed south and in between the existing bridges. Alternative D would be the 888 alternative with the north and in between bridge, and alternative E, the 888 south and in between bridge construction. Alternative 8 is the 810-8 alternative with a north and in between bridge construction, and alternative G is 810-8 with the south and in between. And I do want to mention all build alternatives will consider part-time shoulder use and park and ride facility improvements, as well as the inclusion of that shared use path on the bridge. Next slide. So the next few slides give you a visual of the full alternatives from end to end. Let's see. So all of the let's see, the structure locations would be, okay, I'm sorry. It's a little hard to see this. So alternative B, this is alternative B. It's the 686 north alternative. So the new spans would be constructed one north of the existing span and one in between the existing spans. All of the build alternatives, the lanes and shoulders would be 12 feet wide and with a varying median. The shared use path would be 10 feet wide with a 2-foot wide offset on both sides of the SUP. And we will be noting the locations of lane transitions in the draft environmental impact statement. So next slide. So alternative C, this is the 686 alternative with the new bridge location being one new bridge south of the existing bridges and one in between. Next slide. This is the alternative D. It's the 888 north alternative. So that new structure would be one new bridge north of and one new span north of and one new span in between the existing bridges. Next slide. This is the 888 South alternative, which is one new bridge south of and one in between the existing bridges. I do also want to mention that on the western shore, widening would occur to the outside in both directions. And on the eastern shore, widening would occur. We'd be looking at first to widen to the inside of the existing lanes in both directions and then to the outside as needed. Next slide. So this shows the 810-8 north alternative. It's alternative F. There would be one new bridge constructed north of and one new span and one new span constructed in between the existing bridges. Next slide. And this is alternative G, the 810-8 south alternative. Next slide. So our current activities are, we are working on summarizing and reviewing those open house comments and working on, obviously, the alternatives retained for detailed study as we move forward into the next few months. We expect to receive concurrence from the agencies on the ARDs this month, but moving forward, we're preparing that draft environmental impact statement that I mentioned earlier. It will be published in the fall of 2025. And we also continue extensive public and stakeholder engagement. So if there are any activities, any community activities that you think you would be a good fit for the Bay Crossing Study team, please reach out and let us know. And if there are any meetings that you would like to have our team come out to present and talk with folks, please let us know about that as well. Okay, next slide. So that's all the slides we've got today. Are there any questions?
Heather, I have a question, if it's okay.
Sure.
Mr. Chair.
Hi.
I'm Chris Jakubiak. Hi. So you say that each of the alternatives will include a part-time shoulder use, consideration of part-time shoulder use. Is the consideration there for the capacity that it provides, or is it for overflow in the event of or bypassing lanes that may be blocked by an accident and sort of more of an emergency management?
Right. Well, we would be considering it for capacity primarily. However, that is a benefit that if one of the lanes were blocked, that we could use that the shoulder as well. Right. So
you might consider then you would compare a 6-lane bridge with it and assume that it actually operates like an 8-lane bridge in the future because of the added capacity. Is that what you're saying?
We are considering that.
Right.
So we'll be evaluating that moving forward. The intent would not be to use the shoulders full time under that scenario.
Right.
But potentially during high volume.
Got it. And it's understood that the bridge will last well beyond the design year for traffic projections, which is, I think, 2045. And that is factored into the design too. We're building for longevity and resilience, and an 8-lane bridge provides far more long-term capacity than anything less than that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Queen Anne's County had a question.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Hey, I just wanted to clarify that the purpose and need identified how when congestion occurs, we have the spillover onto Maryland 18 and the local roads get congested when trips are diverted off of US 5301.
Mm-hmm.
And by eliminating the intersection consolidation, will you still be looking at strategies and how you will minimize the impacts to adjacent roads like Maryland 18 while keeping those interchange and exit ramps and basically the same system in place? With all the exit ramps remaining, the interchange consolidation not occurring, are we going to be looking at other strategies to minimize impacts to Maryland 18 when congestion does occur on the main line?
Certainly we'll be looking at all of that as we move forward with our traffic analysis. The intent would be, if there's more capacity on the bridge, the intent is that there would be less congestion, of course, to then spill over. But absolutely, we'll be looking at that moving forward.
And there'd be we can look at alternative methods of how to keep people on the main line.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
we appreciate you thinking of our residents and our businesses by keeping those open. But as you know, it's a very complicated issue with keeping people on the highway while keeping the access to our residents and businesses.
It is.
Thanks
It
for
is,
all your hard work.
absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you, Steve.
Mr. Chair, hearing no more questions, we will now ask the BRTB to consider Resolution 25-22. That would be the approval of the alternatives retained for detailed study for the Bay Crossing Study Project.
Great presentation. Thank you both. I now ask for a member to move on the resolution and get a second for the resolution.
Anne Arundel County motions, move on it.
Baltimore County will second. Does any BRTB members have any questions or comments on the alternatives? Hearing none, we'll now ask that any member of the public, if they have any questions or comments on the resolution, to please indicate so in the chat box. Todd, has any member of the public asked to speak?
Mr. Chair, currently there is no member of the public requesting to speak on this resolution.
All right, we'll now proceed with the vote. And again, with cameras on, when Rebecca reads your name, please indicate yay or nay.
Annapolis. Anne Arundel County.
Aye. Annapolis votes yes.
Oh, thank you. And
Arundel-
Anne Arundel County.
Anne Arundel County, yes.
Thank you. Baltimore City. Baltimore County.
Yay.
Carroll County.
Yay.
Harford County.
Yay.
Howard County.
Yay.
Queen Anne's County.
Yay.
MDOT. And RTA of Central Maryland.
Yay.
Thanks so much.
And this is Baltimore City. My apologies. I couldn't unmute for some reason. My vote is yay.
No worries. I'll make note of that. Thank you.
Okay, the resolution is passed. Next action item, please.
Certainly, today the BRTB is being asked to consider Resolution 25-23 to amend the Transportation Improvement Program for 4 transit-related projects. We're going to have multiple presenters on this. The first one is Anne Arundel County's Ferry Project, the Rural Transit Systems, Urban Transit Systems, and the Annapolis Ferry Project. We'll start out with Mr. Brian Ulrich from Anne Arundel County, followed by, I believe, Miss Jamie Richardson from MTA, and then Kwaku Duo from Annapolis. Brian, could we start off with you, please?
Yep. You want to go to the next slide? So this amendment is to add the Anne Arundel County Ferry Project. This would be new passenger ferry service between Anne Arundel County, starting in Annapolis and going between both Queen Anne's County and Baltimore City. And this is to accept the federal grant for the ferry purchase, landing improvements, and charging infrastructure. Next slide. We've got a map here just showing the locations. It'd be at City Dock in Annapolis. We're working on Queen Anne's County, but right now we're looking at Mattapique Pier, and then also Baltimore City. We're working on possible locations there as well, but it would be into Baltimore, into one of the docks there. This is how the funding is broken up from the grant. Large majority of it is for up to 2 passenger ferries, but there's also money for landing improvements and charging infrastructure. And then next slide just shows kind of the table for the amendment specifically. And then I believe that's it. We'll take any questions if you have any, or if you want to wait. I don't know how Todd wants to do it, if you want to ask now or wait till the end.
Let's wait till the end if we could, please.
Yep.
Okay, next we will move on to MTA and the tip amendments from MTA.
Hi, Jamie Richardson here from MTA. I'm just going to present on 2 amendments, our Urban and Rural Transit Systems Capital Assistance. So as a reminder, when MTA obligates a grant, we just have to show the funds in the year of obligation. Next slide. So rural capital assistance, this was previously in the TIP, but we're just adding it to the current TIP. So this amendment and funding supports preventive maintenance in Carroll County and in Baltimore County for 4 medium-duty buses. So that's $4 million in 5311 funds and $1 million in local and state match. Next slide. For the urban capital assistance, this is funding supporting Harford County with their FY 2021 bus facilities grant for vehicle purchases. So expecting to obligate that grant in FY 2025. And this will add 1.4 million in 5311 funds and then 265K in match for that grant. And that's it. So any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. And now we will move on to Annapolis. Kwaku, are you able to present?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you fine.
All right, thank you. This amendment is to move the entire project cost for the battery electric ferry to FY 2025, which is the anticipated year of obligation. It shows federal funds of $2.975 million and a local share of $525,000. We have completed a NEPA review with the help of MTA in July of 2024. Next slide, please. So it's a fixed route ferry service for passengers, and of course, we make room for bicycles. The route length is about half a mile long, connecting Eastport to downtown. And currently, we do have existing on-demand water taxi. This will supplement that. It's not to replace that. We did estimate the annual ridership, which is around 20,000 rides, mostly during the 1 month of the year. Next slide. So the total program cost, as I said earlier, is 3.5. It's only for capital. We do not have federal grants or any other grants for our operations. It's Section 5307 passenger ferry grant, which we did apply in FY 2022. Of course, the local match is 15%, and federal share is 85%. Next slide. So the project consists of 3 components. The ferry vessels themselves, we did indicate of buying 2. If you operate transit, you always have to have a spare ratio. So our spare ratio is 1, which is in the amount of about $1.8 million. We also have 1.5 for landing improvements and the charging infrastructure. Next slide, please. So we are about to award a contract for the ferry vessels with the integrated charger. Originally, we have the charging infrastructure as a separate project, but we did actually find that you can have the charging infrastructure integrated with the ferry vessel. So that is how we did write the RFP for that. So we are about to award a contract. The only reason why we haven't moved forward with the award is the administration executive orders, especially targeting projects or programs that significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions. If you are aware, on, I believe, March 11th, USDOT did issue guidance on that. So there will be a project-by-project review. It is in view of that, that's why we have not made the award yet for the vessel and then the integrated charger. We are moving forward with the RFP for the landing improvements. We plan to submit it for concurrence to advertise sometime next week, and then we move forward with that. Year of anticipated services to begin in 2026. So unless there is a recall of the federal grant for the project. Any other questions, I'll be glad to answer. Thank you.
And with that, Mr. Chair, we ask the board to consider Resolution 25-23, including these 4 TIP amendments: Anne Arundel County Ferry Project, Rural Transit Systems, Urban Transit Systems, and the Annapolis Ferry Project.
Great. I now ask for a member to move the approval of the resolution, and can we get a second?
Anne Arundel County motions to approve.
Howard County seconds.
Does the BRTB members have any questions or comments on any of the projects contained in this resolution? Hearing none, we now ask that any member of the public that has a question or a comment on the resolution to please indicate so in the comment section of the chat box. Todd, has any member of the public asked to speak?
Mr. Chair, currently there is no member of the public requesting to speak on this resolution.
All right, now we'll proceed to the vote. Again, with cameras on, when Rebecca calls your name, please indicate yay or nay.
Annapolis,
Yay.
Anne Arundel County,
Yeah.
Baltimore City. Baltimore City.
Aye.
Thank you. Baltimore County,
Yay.
Carroll County,
Aye.
Harford County,
Yay.
Howard County,
Yay.
Queen Anne's County,
Yay.
MDOT,
Yay.
and RTA of Central Maryland.
Yay.
Thank you.
Okay, the resolution is passed. On to the next action item, please.
Today, the BRTB is being asked to consider Resolution 25-24 to amend the TIP to allow the Maryland Transportation Authority to program an infra grant for the Curtis Creek Drawbridge Deck Rehabilitation and Resiliency Project. Mr. Carl Chamberlain will give the presentation. Carl?
Thank you, Todd. Carl Chamberlain, Deputy Director of Planning and Program Development at MDTA. So this is a pretty straightforward project. So MDTA includes projects in the TIP when they have either federal funding or they're of regional significance. In this case, it's for federal funding. So the project won an infra grant. It's basically a system preservation project. It replaces portions of the concrete deck and parapet, repairs and strengthens steel cantilever girders, and there's a removal and replacement of low-level lights and traffic signals. So pretty straightforward scope. This Curtis Creek Drawbridge is close to FSK. We moved forward with some projects after the collapse of the bridge, recognize that there's going to be less traffic on that facility. So we're trying to move through a couple of projects that were already planned, and this is one of them. And we were lucky enough to win a grant for the construction. Advertisement is planned for spring 2025. Actually, I think the last I heard was it's going to be in about 8 weeks. We'll be advertising the project. Construction is expected for fall of 2025. Infra funds are going to be $7.5 million, and the total cost of the project is $12.7 million. And that's it. I'm happy to take any questions.
Mr. Chair, we now ask the BRTB to consider Resolution 25-24 to program the infra grant for the Curtis Creek Drawbridge Deck Rehabilitation and Resiliency Project.
All right, I now ask for a member to move for the approval of the resolution, and can we get a second?
Howard County
Annapolis moves.
Howard County moves.
Baltimore County will second. Now, do we have any questions from the BRTB members about the resolution? Hearing none, we now ask that any member of the public have any questions or comments on this resolution to please indicate so within the chat box. Todd, has any member of the public asked to speak?
Mr. Chair, currently there is no member of the public requesting to speak on this resolution.
All right, now we'll proceed to the vote. And once again, with your cameras on, when Rebecca reads your name, please indicate yay or nay.
Annapolis,
Yay.
Anne Arundel County,
Yay.
Baltimore City,
Aye.
Baltimore County,
Yay.
Carroll County,
Yay.
Harford County,
Yay.
Howard County,
Yay.
Queen Anne's County,
Yay.
MDOT,
Yay.
and RTA of Central Maryland.
Yay.
Thanks, everyone.
The resolution's passed. Now on to informational items. Todd, please introduce the next speaker.
Actually, Mr. Chair, we were able to get the informational item prior to the resolution, so there are no other informational items.
Great. Is there any other business that needs to come before the BRTB? Hearing none, I call for a vote to close the meeting. All in favor say yay.
Yeah.
Yay.
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 All right, our next meeting of the BRTB is scheduled in person Friday, April 25th. I look forward to seeing everybody then.